Ancient Echoes Full Episode. Destruction of the Roman Empire. The fall of an eternal giant. For more than 1,000 years, the Roman Empire stood as the most powerful political force the Western world had ever seen. Its roads stretched across continents, its armies commanded the loyalty of millions, and its laws shaped future civilizations. People called Rome the Eternal City, a place that would never fall, a power too large to break, too wise to collapse, too strong to be conquered. And yet, history tells a different story. This is the tale of how a mighty empire died. But great empires do not fall in a single night, nor do they collapse from a single blow. Instead, they crumble slowly, weakened by internal conflict, economic decay, political corruption, foreign invasions, climate shifts, plagues, and the slow erosion of ideas that once held them together. In this long-form Ancient Echoes episode, we travel back to the heart of Rome. We meet emperors and generals, rebels and invaders, common citizens and forgotten figures whose actions echoed through the ages. We trace the empire's descent from unmatched greatness into devastating ruin, and witness how the fall of Rome reshaped the world forever. This is not just a history lesson. This is a story of pride and ambition, of fear and desperation, of a world transforming under the weight of its own greatness. It is the story of how the Roman Empire, rich in power, wisdom, and glory, became fragile, divided, and ultimately defeated. So sit back. Let the echoes of the ancient world unfold before you, as we explore the destruction of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire of the 2nd century was a marvel of the ancient world. Under the rule of the 5 good emperors, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius, Rome experienced decades of stability, prosperity, and cultural flourishing. From the sands of Egypt to the forests of Germania, from the British Isles to the deserts of Syria, the Roman eagle soared above countless lands. But beneath this surface of perfection, the roots of destruction were slowly sinking. The borders stretched too far. Rome's greatest strength, its massive reach, became one of its most dangerous weaknesses. The empire spanned more than 5 million square kilometers. Defending such a vast territory required enormous resources, money, soldiers, supplies, and constant vigilance. Every frontier was a potential threat. Every road needed maintenance. Every province demanded loyalty. The larger Rome grew, the harder it became to hold together. Economic strain begins to show. The Roman economy looked powerful, but cracks began forming after the expansion stopped. Conquest had once supplied wealth, slaves, and land, but now Rome depended on taxation to sustain itself. Taxes increased, citizens protested, farmers abandoned lands, and inflation crept through the empire. Luxury spread among the elites while poverty grew among the lower classes. Corruption becomes a silent killer. Political corruption slowly poisoned the empire. After Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, the throne passed to his son, Commodus, a disastrous emperor known for cruelty, incompetence, and self-indulgence. His reign shattered the aura of imperial excellence. Power was now bought, sold, and stolen. Senators plotted. Generals rebelled. Guards assassinated emperors for gold. The crisis of the 3rd century. Between 235 and 284 CE, more than 20 emperors were assassinated, overthrown, or killed in battle. Civil wars tore the empire apart. Rival claimants fought for control. Armies swore loyalty not to Rome, but to their commanders. Meanwhile, outside threats pressed harder. Plagues and climate changes. Rome was hit by deadly pandemics, including the Antonine Plague and the Plague of Cyprian, killing millions. Entire regions saw reduced harvests due to colder climates and shifting seasonal patterns. Population dropped. Armies weakened. Economies crumbled. A fragile empire emerges. By the late 3rd century, Rome survived only through major reforms by emperors like Aurelian and Diocletian, but the damage was already done. The empire was no longer a shining monolith, it was a struggling giant, wounded and tired, fighting to stay alive. And then came the greatest transformation of all. The empire divides. In 285 CE, Emperor Diocletian took a bold step. He split the Roman Empire into East and West to make it easier to govern. The Eastern Empire, centered in Constantinople, grew prosperous and stable. The Western Empire, centered in Rome and later Ravenna, grew weak, poor, and politically fragmented. This division would shape the destiny of Rome. The barbarian migrations begin. The word, barbarian, was a Roman label for foreigners, but these groups were not mindless destroyers. They were nations, the Goths, Vandals, Huns, Franks, Alans, and more, driven by hunger, climate change, warfare, and hope for a better life within Roman lands. Many admired Rome. Many wanted peace. But Rome, overwhelmed, often responded with cruelty or weakness. The rise of the Huns. In the late 4th century, a storm emerged from the east, the Huns, a fierce nomadic empire that pushed other tribes westward. Terrified by the Huns, the Gothic tribes fled toward Rome's borders, begging for refuge. Rome accepted them, but mistreated them. Starved, abused, and exploited, the Goths rebelled. The Battle of Adrianople, a turning point. In 378 CE, the Eastern Roman Emperor Valens attacked the Goths without waiting for reinforcements. The battle ended in catastrophe. Valens was killed. 2/3 of the Roman field army was annihilated. The shockwave spread across the empire. Rome realized that its legions were no longer invincible. Political fragmentation. Meanwhile, in the West, emperors rose and fell rapidly. Powerful generals, not emperors, controlled the state. Court politics turned deadly. Factions within the empire frequently sided with different barbarian groups against one another. Rome was no longer united. It was a patchwork of competing interests. Economic freefall. The Western Empire's finances collapsed. Cities shrank. Trade routes died. Gold became scarce, forcing Rome to pay its armies with land instead of salaries. A broke empire cannot defend itself. Barbarian integration, a failed experiment. Rome increasingly relied on barbarian soldiers to fill its armies. These troops were loyal to their own tribal leaders, not to Rome. Instead of protecting Rome, they often acted as independent powers within the empire. The empire was slowly losing control of its own military. Christianity and cultural shifts. The rise of Christianity did not destroy the empire, but it changed its character. Traditional Roman values, ancestral rituals, and imperial cults faded. Internal disputes between Christian factions further divided political unity. By the early 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was weak, divided, and surrounded by powerful tribes that Rome no longer had the strength to manage. The stage was set for disaster. Alaric and the First Sack of Rome, 410 CE. Alaric, the Gothic king, had served Rome, marched with its armies, and understood its politics. But when Rome denied his people land and payment, he turned against the empire he once supported. In 410 CE, Alaric's forces entered the Eternal City. It was the first time in 800 years that Rome had been taken by a foreign enemy. The world was stunned. Poets cried. Saint Jerome wrote, "My voice sticks in my throat." Although the sack was controlled and not a total destruction, the psychological impact was immense. Rome was no longer untouchable. The Vandals and the Second Great Sack, 455 CE. Decades later, political betrayal led the Vandals, under King Genseric, to attack Rome. This time, the sack lasted 2 full weeks. Treasure, art, gold, and sacred relics were stripped away. The Vandals were so thorough that their name became synonymous with destroyer. Britain, Gaul, Spain, provinces lost. Rome's provinces began slipping away like sand. Britain seceded. The Franks took Gaul. The Visigoths controlled Spain. North Africa, Rome's food supply, was lost to the Vandals. The Western Empire was starving. Attila the Hun, the scourge of God. Attila ravaged Europe, once bringing his armies to the very gates of Rome. Although he never captured the city, his campaigns exhausted the empire. Rome was now a skeleton of its former self, defended by foreign mercenaries, ruled by weak emperors, and abandoned by its provinces. The fall of the Western Empire, 476 CE. By 476 CE, the Western Empire had one last emperor, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus. The real power belonged to the barbarian general Odoacer. Odoacer deposed the child emperor and declared himself king of Italy. No one resisted. No legions marched. No senators protested. The Western Roman Empire was destroyed. Rome's fall was not a single event. It was a long, complex process. Historians point to dozens of causes. 1. Political instability. Too many emperors, too many coups, too much corruption. 2. Economic collapse. Inflation, poverty, failed taxation, collapsing trade. 3. Military decline. Over-reliance on mercenaries, weakened legions, internal conflict. 4. Barbarian pressure. Not simple invaders, but migrating nations reshaping Europe. 5. Environmental and health disasters. Climate cooling, crop failures, pandemics. 6. Overexpansion. The empire became too large to manage. 7. Cultural transformation. Values changed, identity shifted, unity weakened. A new world emerges. But the fall of Rome was not the end of civilization. It was the birth of medieval Europe, kingdoms, cultures, languages, and religions that shaped the modern world. Rome itself survived in another form. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, which lasted another 1,000 years. The Roman Empire did not vanish, it transformed. The eternal echo. Even today, Rome lives on in our laws, languages, architecture, roads, and culture. Every time we speak a Latin-based word, every time we walk through a city built on Roman designs, every time we hear the term Senate, Republic, or Emperor, we hear its echo. Rome may have fallen, but the world it shaped never died.